Hi, I'm Chris Willingham from Fallon. I'm a partner at Fallon. For another week at least. I'm leaving at the end of this week. I'm going away for 4 months, which is wonderful. First break in my 22-year career, which is a wonderful thing to be looking forward to. So this is my last big kind of engagement for a while. And my bit of advice comes from a guy who, if you were around in 1982, was killing it, George Benson. He was at the forefront of a genre called jazz funk, which thankfully now is dead and buried. But back then, he was the man, the guitar man. He won 10 Grammys. So he really was a force. But I hated the music. I absolutely hated the music. I was into a bunch of other stuff. But there was one song that he sang called Never Give Up on a Good Thing, which stuck in my head. It lodged in my subconscious somehow. And I find it playing, even now, I find it playing when I'm in certain situations at work. It's kind of just like this little thing that just kicks in. It reminds me of how to behave in a certain situation. When I've got something in front of me that I think is brilliant, and I make a point of, when I see work, always asking, is that as good as it can be? And when the answer to that is yes, then this kicks in. And I will then take steps to ensure that the work gets made and it gets protected and it gets nurtured along the way. And what I'm going to do, just to sort of highlight that, is I'm going to talk to you about this, about Sony balls. And if we have time, I'll talk to you about Cadbury Gorilla as well, both of which are pieces of work that I have overseen and sort of run. And I'm just going to sit and tell you a story of how it got made. And I'm going to tell you about how the agency team demonstrated tenacity, tact, guile, resourcefulness, perspiration, and pretty much any barrier that was put up to this sort of quality of work, it was overcome. And the best way is just to tell you how it happened. So I'm going to take you back to 2004, the end of 2004, and we got a brief from Sony, who was this mad, dysfunctional Japanese engineering company. They all wanted to see their product. They'd spent 3 years creating this thing. They all wanted to see their product starring in the advertising. So most of what they were doing at this time was very rational. And they had this TV range called Vega. And we were briefed to create a campaign that highlighted this new engine, this new widget that delivered more pixels than the previous Vega. So you've got a better picture, more colour. And we also had to contend with a new global strapline, which was called Like No Other. So we responded with an idea that would, we believe, lift Sony out of the widget war, which everyone else was in, and would redefine the category and justify the price premium that Sony charged for its products. And our thinking was around this thought of Sony TVs bring amazing colour into your life. And we had a couple of ideas on the table, but the one we were absolutely behind was just a 2-line TV script. That's how it started life. It became a much bigger kind of multimedia campaign. It just said, we take 5 million bouncy balls, multicoloured bouncy balls to San Francisco. We empty them down the streets. We film it. Colour like no other. That was it. I was given that the evening before the creative presentation. We stayed up all night because we thought it was amazing. We thought this really was going to redefine the category. And we stayed up all night and we created a really strong, well thought through selling presentation. And our immediate client loved it, and he said, yeah, let's go with that, and I'll get you guys to present it to the product team. We presented to the product team, and they threatened to have us fired, all of us, my client, the marketing client, as well as the agency. because where was the television? Where's the widget? And we said, look, here, we've done some more work. Here it is. Here's some press advertising. Here's some digital advertising. Here's some in-store. We can tell the whole widget story, but we want to sell your television on a more emotional connection. We want people to feel something about this product. And they still said, we're going to get you fired, and we're going to, what's more, we're going to take this to Tokyo, to the product headquarters, and we're going to get them to fire you, because if we can't fire you, we'll get them to fire you. And that's what the global product team tried to do. They tried to get us all fired. Somehow we managed to put a block on that for a short time, and then the brief changed. We had to, suddenly Vega was dead. There was this new range of televisions called Bravia. And of course, the product guy said, well, that's a completely new brief. We're going to brief you now on colour and sound. And we said, okay. So we came back with the same idea. We came back with balls, and we said, here's the music we're thinking of using. You know, it's a colour and sound answer. And we were again threatened with being fired. And at this stage, our marketing client got cold feet. He was really worried, and he said, "Look, I'm sorry, I can't take this any further." And that's when I called an emergency meeting. I got the 5 partners at Fallon into a room. I had Pat Fallon ready in Minneapolis to get on a plane if that didn't work. But we managed to get him back on board. But a week later, he phoned us up and said, "I've got really bad news, guys. They've halved the budget, and they're going to launch it 2 months earlier than we'd told you." So that immediately meant we had a huge production problem. So we couldn't get the balls made in China any longer. We'd ordered 1 million bouncy balls from some company in China. So we had to get people to go around America and buy up any bouncy balls that they could find anywhere in America. And we had people all over the country just buying balls. And we managed to find nearly 250,000 balls. We had people fly over to San Francisco and sit on the doorstep of the city authority to get the permission that we needed to shoot, because the meeting we had scheduled was going to be too late. And then we got to the pre-production meeting. Having got this far, which was a bloody miracle, the director had threatened to walk 3 times as well, because it was on, it was off, it was on, it was off. We were told then that we'd have to lose yet more money and more time, therefore. We had to cut 2 days just before we shot this. So what was a 5-day shoot became a 3-day shoot. Anyway, we shot it, and we got back, and we had this wonderful piece of film, absolutely amazing piece of film, and we showed it within the European headquarters of Sony, and they all loved it. We showed it to the product team, and he said, "Right, we really are seriously going to fire you this time. Where's the fucking television? Where is the fucking television? Unless you put the fucking television in this commercial, you're all fired." And we had a meeting, one of those meetings where the partners were called in. It's like, we could lose the business off, you know, if we keep pushing this, we could lose the business. And we all sat there and looked at each other and literally held hands and said, it's the biggest piece of business Fallon had by a mile at the time. And we all said, we fucking believe in this. We're going to risk it. We're going to stick to our guns. And thankfully, the European guys at Sony did exactly the same. They stuck to their guns. And the best thing about that was not only did it run and it changed the fortunes of Sony for a time, it propelled them from a number 2 or number 3 position in most European markets back to number 1 in TVs. But eventually it actually ran in Japan, which was probably the biggest thing of all. And I suppose that, you know, just in terms of my advice coming out of that, never giving up on a good thing. One thing I would say is I don't think creativity is a tradable commodity. Of course, sometimes when there are very good business reasons, you have to change an idea because it's the right thing to do. But unless it's the right thing to do, unless there is irrefutable proof that it's the right thing to do, don't trade creativity, because 5% less good is potentially the difference between great and just very good. It's not tradable, in my opinion. And I think ideas are precious things, and I think we've lost sight of that a bit. I think people come in and ask for big ideas. They start as tiny little vulnerable things that can be killed really easily by people who aren't constructive around creativity. Anyone can find a reason to kill something. It's the easiest thing to do in the world. Finding a reason to build something, to look for the good in it and to build on that and to make it great, that's a real skill. To a point that someone else made earlier, progress is in the hands of unreasonable men. I don't know where it comes from, I think it's George Bernard Shaw. But again, look for the people inside your agency who want to do brilliant stuff. It's not everyone. Some people want an easy life, even at the very best agencies. Find the people that you can look in the eye and you can see the zeal, you can see the ambition, you can see how much they want it, and recruit them. Don't listen necessarily to who your traffic manager tells you is going to work with you on this project. Work with the people who are going to make it brilliant. Be greedy and fight for the best people inside your agency. That's what we did with Sony. We got an amazing team together that stuck together. And the final point is I think another Dave Trott quote about energy beating talent. Talent's great, but energy's better. Talent can get lucky, it can get lazy, it can get a bit full of itself, but energy makes stuff happen. Energy is what makes progressive stuff. It doesn't falter. And it's around the energetic people that I think you see the very best stuff happening. And I'm, again, just on this project, the amount of energy that people put into it, the days, the nights, the weekends, the relationships that suffered, it was all worth it in the end. I mean, no one actually got divorced, but it was worth it in the end. Very quickly, I won't tell you the whole story of the gorilla, but again, with this one, we fought a tremendous battle to get this made, not with the people who commissioned it, because they loved it, and we sold it really quickly, and we made it really quickly. We got a finished film within about 6 weeks of actually selling the idea in. But the board at Cadbury just couldn't understand what the hell was going on. So again, where's the fucking chocolate? We're a chocolate company. And our argument was, there's not a problem with your product, there's a problem with your brand. People think your brand is a dusty old institution. You need to inject some life into it, some vitality, some youth. You need to surprise people. And we thought we had a great answer. But it took 5 rounds of research to get them to buy it. And we proposed the first round. We said, look, let's research it. Let's see what people think. It just passed on every level. It went off the scale. And the guys on the board said, well, you fixed it, didn't you? You fixed that. And we said, well, you choose the next researcher. Then we believed in it so much. And it flew off the scale. And they said, right, okay, well, we still don't have enough faith in it, so we're going to get an American agency to come over and research it. And this kept going. There were 5 rounds of research. But it was so good that it won out every time, and eventually they had to run it, even though at the point, just before we submitted it to go to air, we had to fight them to avoid putting a shot of swirling milk and chocolate at the end, just as the gorilla's playing his drum solo. I mean, the marketing director threatened to resign if that happened. He put his balls on the line quite literally. And I think that point there, I think, is the difference between a great account management person and a mediocre one. And that is knowing the difference between what a client wants and what a client needs. And it's that translation. So it's understanding the client brief, understanding their business problems, understanding everything about them, but then applying our expertise and our art and translating that into what they actually need. And quite often the two are not the same. Sometimes they are the same, but quite often they're not. So it wasn't a product issue, it was a brand issue in this instance. And seek out, every organisation has got one, at least one. Seek out the clients that are ambitious, that really want to do great stuff. They might not be in the positions where they have the decision-making power, but if you get them on side, you can use them inside that organisation to affect opinion and to push your agenda. And finally, you know, sometimes it takes time to get this stuff done, this really great work done. But it's, you know, if you have to play the long game, be patient, play it, but stick resolutely to your values and your objectives. Never lose sight of what you set out to do. With both Balls and Gorilla, what we sold in on day one, literally, was what went out on air at the end of the process. Nothing changed. They were exactly as they were initially concepted. That's me.